What if you wake up to a notification that the U.S. map has been redrawn? States are breaking away, not to go rogue, but to join Canada. It's not sci-fi. It's a possibility driven by politics, culture, and geography. In this video, we're exploring 10 U.S. states that could trade stars and stripes for the maple leaf. Buckle up for a wild ride through a future that's closer than you think. Picture Alaska, the last frontier. This rugged outpost, detached from the lower 48, shares a 1,500-mile border with Yukon and British Columbia. A frontier so wild, it feels more Canadian than American. Alaska's history as Russian territory until the 1867, purchased for $7.2 million, mocked as Seward's Folly, forged a distinct identity, one tied to Arctic survival and indigenous heritage rather than America's urban sprawl. Its $50 billion economy thrives on oil, 600,000 barrels daily, fishing, 6 billion pounds annually, and tourism, sectors that align with Canada's resource-rich West. Pipelines like the Trans-Alaska could integrate with Canada's energy grid, boosting efficiency. Culturally, Alaskans and Yukoners share a rugged ethos. Dog sledding, ice fishing, and aurora chasing define life here. The Alaskan Independence Party, founded in 1974, has long pushed for secession, with some members eyeing Canada's universal healthcare, covering 100% of hospital costs, and Indigenous land policies as better fits. Trade with Canada, worth $1.2 billion yearly, includes salmon, gold, and timber, flowing through border towns like Skagway. Anchorage, just 400 miles from Whitehorse, but 2,200 from Seattle, feels closer to Canada's orbit. Alaska's Arctic ambitions, icebreaker fleets, polar research, echo Canada's $2 billion northern strategy. Recent U.S. policies like 2023 Arctic drilling bans and tariffs disrupting crab exports have sparked local frustration. Historically, the 1903 Hay-Herbert Treaty resolved border disputes, but family ties, like those of the Tlingit across borders, persist. If the U.S. fractures, say, amid a 2026 debt crisis, Alaska's isolation, northern identity, and economic pragmatism could make joining Canada a reality. Imagine Alaskans voting in a referendum, choosing Ottawa's stability over D.C.'s chaos, their pipelines and ports seamlessly merging with Canada's infrastructure. Now, imagine Vermont as Canada's cozy cousin, this pint-sized state, drenched in maple syrup, 2 million gallons yearly, and progressive ideals mirrors Quebec's charm. Nearly 20% of Vermonters claim French-Canadian ancestry, and Burlington's 90-minute drive to Montreal fosters cross-border life. Think weekend poutine runs. Vermont's $34 billion economy leans on dairy, 40% of output, tourism, 13 million visitors annually, and niche manufacturing like ski gear, complementing Canada's eastern provinces. Exports to Canada, worth $2.1 billion, include cheese and maple products. Politically, Vermont's push for single-payer healthcare in 2011 and 2024's net zero emissions goal align with Canada's social framework. The Second Vermont Republic, active since 2003, dreams of secession or Canadian annexation, citing U.S. gridlock, e.g., stalled 2025 healthcare reforms. Historically, Vermont was an independent republic from 1777 to 1791, a rebellious streak fueling distrust of Washington. Its border with Quebec, barely patrolled, sees 500,000 crossings yearly. Culturally, Vermonters share Quebec's love for folk music and hockey, with events like the Quebec-Vermont Music Festival drawing thousands. Canada's healthcare system, saving families $6,000 annually on prescriptions, is a draw amid U.S. costs $1,200 per capita. Recent frustrations, federal inaction on climate, Vermont's 2023 floods cost $1 billion, push locals toward Canada's green policies. Picture a 2027 scenario. U.S. political chaos deepens, and Vermont holds a town hall vote. Farmers, ski resort owners, and progressives rally for Canada, envisioning seamless trade and healthcare. Historically, Vermont's French settlers, like those in 1760s Missisquoi, blur borders. If the U.S. splinters, Vermont's cultural roots, economic ties, and progressive heart could make joining Canada feel like a family reunion, complete with poutine and universal healthcare. Shift your gaze to Maine's rugged shores. Its craggy coastlines and pine forests blend into Canada's Maritimes, sharing lobster traps and a stoic mentality honed by brutal winters. Maine's $80 billion economy hinges on seafood, $700 million lobster industry, timber, and paper, with 30% of exports, $1.5 billion, flowing to Canada. Shared fishing grounds in the Gulf of Maine tie Maine to New Brunswick economically. 90% of U.S. lobster exports pass through Canadian ports. Culturally, Mainers and Maritimers bond over Acadian heritage, with festivals like Madawaska's Acadian Reunion drawing 5,000 cross-border visitors. Politically, Portland's green energy push, 50% renewable by 2030, contrasts with rural conservatism, mirroring Canada's urban-rural split. Maine's border sees 1 million crossings yearly, with families straddling Calais and St. Stephen. Historically, the 1839 Aroostook War, a bloodless border spat, left cultural ties. Think shared lumberjack folklore. Recent woes, 2024 mill closures, 500 jobs lost, and fishing quotas highlight DC's neglect. Canada's healthcare, no $500 doctor visit copays, and resource policies tempt Mainers. Imagine 2028. U.S. economic sanctions disrupt lobster markets, pushing fishermen to seek Canada's stability. Socially, Maine's French-speaking Aroostook County feels Quebecois, with 20% speaking French at home. Cross-border trade expos, like Calais' annual fair, reinforce ties. If the U.S. fractures, Maine's maritime soul could spark a referendum, with lobstermen and mill workers voting for Canada's markets and safety net. Historically, Maine's 1820 statehood left border ambiguities, and today's economic and cultural bonds make annexation plausible, uniting the Gulf of Maine under the maple leaf. Zoom in on Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The UP, a rugged enclave cut off by the Straits of Mackinac, feels closer to Ontario's Sudbury, 200 miles, than Lansing, 400 miles. Its $20 billion economy, logging, iron ore, and tourism, mirrors Northern Ontario's, with $2 billion in trade flowing to Canada. Culturally, Yoopers embrace hockey, so Sainte Marie. Marie's tournaments draw 10,000, and snowmobiling, akin to Canadians. The superior secession joke, born in 1858, hints at joining Canada, especially as Yoopers feel ignored by Michigan's southern focus. Historically, the UP nearly joined Wisconsin in 1836, and its border with Canada was quietly settled. Recent hits, 2020's Empire mine closure, 700 jobs lost, and 2024 environmental rules frustrate locals. Canada's mining permits and healthcare, 0 hospital bills versus 10,000 U.S. stays, appeal. Cross-border ties like Sault Ste. Marie. Marie's twin city in Ontario, thrive. Imagine 2026. U.S. tariffs choke timber exports, and Yoopers vote to join Canada, integrating mines with Ontario's grid. The UP's Ojibwe tribes, spanning borders, support this, citing Canada's Indigenous policies. With 15% of residents claiming Canadian ancestry and shared ecosystems like Lake Superior, annexation feels natural. If the U.S. splinters, the UP's isolation and economic alignment could make it Canada's newest frontier, hockey rinks and all. Head west to Washington State. Western Washington, with Seattle and Tacoma, is a progressive titan, more akin to British Columbia than Middle America. The Cascadia movement, born in 1994, envisions a green nation with Oregon and BC, fueled by U.S. dysfunction, e.g., 2025 budget stalemate. Washington's $600 billion economy, Microsoft, Boeing, clean energy, aligns with Vancouver's tech hub, with $20 billion in trade. Culturally, Washingtonians share Canada's love for kayaking, craft coffee, and environmentalism. 70% support net zero by 2050. The BC border, a ferry ride from Seattle to Victoria, sees 1.5 million crossings yearly. Historically, the 1846 Oregon Treaty set the border, but ties deepened. Think shared Salish Sea ecosystems. Recent events, Washington's 2023 carbon tax and federal climate inaction highlight northern leanings. Canada's emissions goals in healthcare, $0 versus $12,000 premiums draw interest. Imagine 2027. U.S. trade wars disrupt Boeing's supply chain, and Seattleites push for a Cascadia vote. Socially, cross-border festivals like Vancouver's Folk Fest draw 20,000 Washingtonians. With 10% Canadian ancestry and shared tech corridors, annexation feels seamless. If DC's gridlock worsens, Washington's progressive West could join Canada, uniting Puget Sound under a green maple leaf banner. Dive into Minnesota's lake country. The land of 10,000 lakes mirrors Manitoba, sharing hockey fervor, 20,000 attend wild games, and Scandinavian roots. 25% claim Nordic ancestry. Minnesota's $400 billion economy, agriculture, mining, healthcare, ties to Canada with $5 billion in trade. Politically, its progressive streak, e.g., 2024's free school meals, aligns with Canada's policies, though rural conservatism balances it. The 547-mile border with Ontario and Manitoba, home to the Boundary Waters, sees 800,000 crossings yearly. Historically, Nordic settlers in the 1880s shaped a communal ethos akin to Canada's. Recent U.S. healthcare costs, 20,000 hospital stays, and 2024 flood damages, $500 million, fuel envy of Canada's system. Cross-border pacts like 2019's Red River Flood Plan are routine. Imagine 2028. U.S. climate inaction sparks a Minnesota referendum, with farmers and urbanites favoring Canada's stability. Cultural ties, like the Winnipeg, Minnesota Folk Festival, 15,000 attendees, and shared ecosystems strengthen bonds. With 15% Canadian ancestry, Minnesota's northern identity could make annexation a reality, uniting the Great Lakes under the maple leaf. Consider New Hampshire's rugged spirit. Its live, free or die motto screams independence. But Quebec's proximity, 50 miles from Manchester, makes Canada appealing. New Hampshire's $90 billion economy, manufacturing, tourism, relies on Canada, with Quebec's hydropower, 10% of electricity, and $1 billion in trade. Culturally, its outdoorsy vibe, White Mountains hiking, and French-Canadian heritage, 15% in Manchester, align with Canada. Politically, a swing state, its Free State Project, 2001, fuels secession talk. The 1842 Webster-Ashburton Treaty set the border, but 600,000 crossings yearly keep ties tight. Recent U.S. tax hikes, 2024, and gun debates frustrate locals. Canada's decentralized governance appeals. Imagine 2026. U.S. overreach sparks a vote, with ski towns and factories favoring Canada. Cross-border ski trips and Quebec festivals, 10,000 attendees, bond locals. With shared rivers like the Connecticut, annexation feels pragmatic. If the U.S. splinters, New Hampshire's spirit could make it Canada's libertarian outpost. Look at North Dakota's wide-open plains. Its prairies and winters mirror Saskatchewan's, with a $60 billion economy, oil, wheat, tied to Canada via $3 billion in trade. Culturally, Scandinavian roots, 30% ancestry, and a hard-working ethos align with Canada's prairies. Politically conservative, North Dakota relies on Manitoba's hydropower. The 49th parallel border, set in 1818, saw Ojibwe tribes cross freely. Recent oil price crashes, 2023, and drilling bans hit hard. Canada's tax breaks and healthcare, $0 versus $8,000 costs, tempt locals. Imagine 2027. U.S. sanctions disrupt wheat exports and farmers vote for Canada. Cross-border expos like Mine at Regina, 5,000 attendees, strengthen ties. With shared ecosystems like the Red River, annexation could unite the prairies under Canada's flag. Explore Montana's Big Sky country. Its 545-mile border with Alberta and Saskatchewan feels Canadian, with a $50 billion economy, beef, grain, tied to Canada, $1 billion trade. Culturally, Montanans hunting and rodeo. Love matches Canada's outdoor vibe. Politically conservative, its libertarian streak aligns with Canada's governance. The 49th parallel blurred Blackfoot tribal lines. Recent grazing restrictions, 2024, anger ranchers. Canada's resource policies and healthcare appeal. Imagine 2028. U.S. land policies spark a vote, with ranchers favoring Canada. Cross-border rodeos, Calgary Stampede draws 10,000 Montanans, bond locals. Annexation could unite the plains under the maple leaf. Finally, step into Oregon's green heart. Its liberal Portland clashes with conservative East, mirroring Canada's dynamics. The Cascadia movement, 1980s, envisions a green nation with BC Oregon's $260 billion economy, tech, timber, ties to Canada, $2 billion trade. Culturally, its eco-conscious ethos aligns with Vancouver. The 1846 Oregon Treaty set the border, but ferries link BC recent wildfires, 2023, $1 billion, and federal inaction frustrate locals. Canada's green laws and healthcare draw interest. Imagine 2027. U.S. dysfunction sparks a Cascadia vote. Cross-border festivals, 5,000 attendees, and shared ecosystems like the Columbia River Bond locals. Annexation could unite the Northwest under Canada's green banner. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more breakdowns on global travel, visa bans, and what's really happening around the world. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.